Are you at home then?
Okay. Well, today's date, June 3rd, 2025. I would say, it's not June 6, 1945, the longest day, but I'm talking to someone whose father may not have stormed the beaches of Normandy, but certainly came through shortly thereafter. Edward Leyden. Edward Leyden, also known to my dearly beloved family as Uncle Buck, someone who I've known now certainly almost 35 years. Well, not certainly 35 years,
Yes.
1990, and who's as handsome as ever from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, who we back in the day, early 1990 to be exact, uh, he and I became brothers in the practice of law. We were law clerks at the office of Farrington and Smallwood out there at 9200 Basil Court, Landover, Maryland. And here we are today. Uncle Walk is a distinguished attorney here in the county and doing great work. So thank you, Ed, for allowing us to grab some of your interesting history. Uh, Uncle Buck, where were you born and when were you born?
I was born in 1958 in Philadelphia.
And who are your parents?
My parents is Raymond Leyden and Mary O'Donnell Leyden.
And were you born? I'm sorry. Were you born next to the Liberty Bell?
No, no, in Southwest Philadelphia, Misericordia Hospital.
Yeah. Was that a particular ethnic neighborhood, or was it just general?
No, it was the neighborhood my mother grew up. It was very much Irish Catholic. It was an Irish Catholic enclave in Philadelphia. My mother is first generation. I'm second generation Irish from Ireland, and
So,
that's
what part of
where
Ireland was your mom from?
she was from Donegal, from up in the
Donegal.
northwest.
Yeah, Donegal. How far is that from Londonderry?
It is a hop, skip, and a jump. Londonderry, Derry, as they call it, is right across the border in what's now Northern Ireland, and it's all of about 30 or 40 miles, frankly. And we've been to
Outstanding.
both. We've been to both.
Yeah. Well, I may not have any Irish heritage that I know of, but certainly my wife's grandfather was Irish. I'm not sure they're from County Down or from Cork. So your niece and nephew, some more Christian and Maconan Christian have some Irish blood in them.
Indeed, indeed.
They're the Black Irish of the Caribbean. And what about your dad? Was he Irish as well?
He is, of course, yes. His parents came over in the early part of the century, as both did, and they were in northeast Philadelphia, in the Kensington area.
Indeed. Have you ever been able to go back to Ireland to trace your roots?
I've done it extensively. I do have background on my mother's parents and going back 3 generations. And, in fact, I'm in contact with the parish where both were apparently born. And so working actually very diligently to get that firmed up. But I have there through ancestor.com, I've got going back to the 1840s, actually.
Outstanding, outstanding. It's very important. And Uncle Buck, what did when you around the time you were born, what did your father do? What did your mother do?
Father was in the Navy, and my mother was at that point became a housewife, but she had been a secretary for years.
Outstanding, outstanding. How many of you in the family?
Just myself and my sister. We both were born 14 months apart back in 1959.
And what's her name?
Mary Ann. She's married, has 2 children of her own, lives in the Chester County, Pennsylvania, south of Philadelphia.
Yeah. And what did she end up doing?
She ended up being actually the executive assistant to the chairman of the board of Cigna.
Cigna, the insurance company.
Cigna Insurance Company, yes.
Outstanding, outstanding. I think you and I know about a little bit about insurance companies, but we'll get to that in a moment. And so your dad was in the Navy. What is his area of speciality in the Navy, if you know?
Yes, no, he's engine specific parts of engines and of specific gear, switch gear, and how to operating the electrical apparatus that raises and lowers The gates that, for example, on a LHA, a landing ship
Yes.
tank, those sorts of things. He was the Navy's actually specialist in that, and we
Amazing.
travel
So
far.
your father was, yeah. So he was an engineer.
Yeah, he was a trained engineer. Same
Indeed.
school I went to, Drexel. He was an electrical engineer. I was a mechanical engineer.
Okay. So he was college educated.
Yes, absolutely.
Indeed. So, but Ed, he was in the army before during the war, and then later
Yes,
went
he
to the
was.
Navy.
He was in the U.S. Army. You alluded to D-Day. He came ashore on Omaha Beach, not on June 6th, some weeks afterwards, and transversed his way across Europe with the 6th Armored Division and then 3rd Army Headquarters.
Outstanding, outstanding. Was that Patton's army?
It was. In fact, he worked directly for Patton and was Patton's radio man. In the latter stages of the war, he came out with a Purple Heart and 2 Bronze Stars, actually.
Amazing. Congratulations. I just want to thank him through his illustrious son for his service and, that great generation that saved the world from fascism. Is dear in my heart. We had a father who served in the British Army, and you had the good fortune to have met
Yeah,
several
idea.
times.
It was an honor to have known your dad. He was
Yes.
a great man.
Well, Uncle Buck, so you grew up in a Catholic home. Would you go to church every Sunday?
We did, St. Anne's Parish in Philadelphia through 8 years of school, and then Northeast Catholic High School in Philadelphia, and graduated from there, and then on to Drexel, my father's alma mater, and
What did you study at Drexel?
I started a dual major. I was finance and mechanical engineering.
And then what year did you get out of Drexel?
1981.
And was that in finance or mechanical engineering?
I was both, actually. It was a dual degree.
Amazing, amazing. Uncle Buck, I want to say for the record, you've been a man of immense intellectual depth. You are someone who has expanded the circumference of my knowledge in a great many things. I don't say that in any way aiming at flattery, but just a high honor and privilege I've had since our law school years when we worked as clerks. But I'll get to that in a little bit. So you get out of Drexel in 81, and what are you intending to do at that point?
Well, I follow on to my background in engineering. I was in process controls and I did work as regard to putting together a career in sales of process control implementation.
Did you say Procter & Gamble?
No, process control.
Process control.
Refineries and those sorts of and other process control. Did some work on the side.
Yeah. And what company was that with?
That was several companies, but it was Fisher Controls, Fisher and Porter, and Johnson Controls. And
okay, so Johnson Controls is a pretty big company.
Yeah, and we were all big companies in those days. And put my way through law school. Started law school in 1986. Finished up when we had met.
Yes.
Went back to Georgetown. Got my LLM. We practiced together at the Tom Farrington's firm.
Yes. Tell us about Tom Farrington. Who was Tom Farrington?
Tom Farrington was a prince of a fella. One of the leading lights of the Maryland bar in those days. Really was a civil rights pioneer to a great extent, to an unappreciated extent of the rare breed of intellectual, Bill Clinton, others who were at the forefront of the civil rights movement, and certainly here in Prince George's County, making sure that there were opportunities where opportunities had not existed before for people of color, and did so with an open heart and a clear mind. It was just a prince among lawyers, and just a brilliant, brilliant scholar and lawyer, and I think he was a mentor to all of us.
Yes, for those of you who don't, for those listening to this, Thomas Farrington attended Yale, was a paratrooper officer in the 82nd Airborne. But when he came into the county, became, I believe, the first white lawyer in Prince George's County history to become a member of the NAACP, and studied people like Wayne Curry, and was very close to people like Betty Hewlett, and certainly Michelle Houghton, who ended up on Maryland Court of Appeals, was one of the mentees that he had. And at the time, I don't think we knew his history yet, did we?
No, we didn't. We just knew to jump when he said jump.
Yes. And tell us a little bit about his intellectual majesty, and what you learned from him, for those who will listen to this tape later on.
I think the thing with Tom was that Tom backed his just shining intellect with practicality, and never. I think one of the things I learned from Tom was always look below the surface and always keep questioning, because Tom would always question everything. And I think I've learned from Tom that the practice of law is really the practice of working with human beings, because Tom always saw the human aspect of any issue. And I just, he was a liberating presence, because it really put into perspective that this practice of law, while intellectually challenging, really does boil down to how people are and how they live their lives. He was a master at that. And of course, his capacity to reach jurors was unmatched. He had a rare combination of that. I guess they call it now emotional intelligence. He had both intellectual intelligence and emotional intelligence. And, hid behind a little bit of a gruff exterior from time to time, but a man's man in every facet, a man in full.
Indeed. How do you believe that the time we spent with Tom Farrington helped us in our later careers?
Oh, I think it's. I always hear Tom's voice in the back of my head, especially if I'm tempted to take a stupid position or to take an ill-considered one. I can just in the back of my mind say, "Well, what would Tom say if I said that?"
Yes.
And Tom, that one of the best lessons I ever got from Tom was the day he told me, Ed, some of the things you have said are brilliant, but that was one of the stupidest things I've ever heard.
Yes.
But that was the feedback that it just was the reality of it, the reality check to set limits. And I still boil back to, what would Tom say if I went down that road?
Yes, indeed. What would Tom say? That's so important, because as young law clerks and then later attorneys, we had the high honor and privilege of being mentored by someone who was superb in the way of courtroom performance, but also he was very studied. He was an intellectual of the first order. Speak about that, his love of reading, and the World War II Club, where you have any insight on that, and how that kind of immersion in not just a sort of vocational approach to law practice, but the intellectual jousting, how did that help our intellectual maturation?
Oh, well, that's the essence of lawyering. Tom had just a hugely broad perspective. You mentioned the World War II Club, his interest in knowledge in the Civil War from his military background. Tom was the combination of a superb tactician, as I'm sure he must have been as an infantry officer, combined with a strategic genius. And that really, as applied to the practice of law, is a formidable combination. And I think he instilled that in all of us who were blessed to have worked with him.
Indeed. And so we tell, for the listening audience, who were the clients that we worked for when we were at the office of Tom Farrington?
Well, in those days, we're the insurance guys. We did insurance defense, and so we uh, were the people, the lawyers who would handle the defense side of various torts and other things where people would come in with major problems, who their insurance company would trust us to address and to um, give the best possible defense. And we did that day in, day out. It was a wonderful experience. It was a real blooding, as it were, because it got us into court and got us into the up to our elbows in the real day-to-day practice of law, discovery, and motions practice, and those things that really are the pleasures and the challenges of day-to-day law practice. Um,
Yeah,
and it really did, it was a very good filter to determine whether this is the work you wanted to do in your life,
indeed,
because if this didn't get your blood flowing, then, that perhaps being a trial lawyer was not your forte.
indeed. So you talk about motions eliminate, motions for summary judgment, motions for sanctions, for failure to provide discovery, going into court for settlement conferences, representing Lloyd's of London, USAA, Allstate, Fireman's Fund, Chubb Group, Crum and Forster, Maryland Auto Insurance Fund. All those were clients that came through our office, right?
That's those were them, and they trusted us with their insurance issues, and really, I mean, the things we learned in those days, I mean, have stuck with us, and I still use them. And you and I
Yes,
have had discussions where we said, well, there's a duty to defend and a duty to indemnify, and those are separate. And I've reminded people probably a million times. Remember, this is what you paid your insurance premiums for, the duty to defend, and that's why we are here, to defend you.
indeed. And so we worked as clerks. We took the bar together in 91 at Baltimore. I remember
Yes,
that.
it's it just that seems as a dream, because um, the it's almost like an insurmountable mountain. Your entire legal career leading up to that point of passing the bar, and then when those 3 days finally are upon you, it just seems to pass in a blink of an eye. And
In a blur.
yeah, the next thing you know, you start on Tuesday, and the next thing you know, it's Thursday afternoon, and it's done.
Yes,
and,
indeed.
and then it's
I,
4 months of waiting to get the result. The anxiety builds, and once it comes through, it's
and Ed, we went to we took the exams in those days. I'm not sure what it is like now. 34 years ago, almost 35. That was at the convention center in the inner harbor of Baltimore.
yes, it was, with all the temptations of the Inner Harbor, which was a much, much more active place than it even is now.
Yes.
The two pavilions were just filled with restaurants and other recreation, and I think we got lunch one of the days over there, if I remember, and then
Yes,
came
yes.
back, after that, and just went in and got it done. Got it done.
Indeed,
You know,
indeed. And then of course, Ed, we worked together doing litigation.
yep, it was in court and running up and down Route 202 to the courthouse in here, where I practice now, where you practice, where my office is as a state's attorney, and those were the days right as the new courthouse was coming online, and
Indeed,
but that little trek to the clerk's office, goodness knows how many times we made that trek up
indeed.
202, parked, and then walked into the front of the Main Street entrance, what they now call the Duval Wing, which then was just the
Yeah,
courthouse.
yeah. And Ed, we had some cases where we went to DC and we had what Alpo and Bow Wow.
Yes, yes. We tried cases in Superior Court. That particular case you're mentioning, we were privileged to try it before one of the finest judges who's ever sat in Superior Court, the Honorable Steve Milliken, who was just a wonderful, wonderful judge. and gave us a very good trial.
Indeed.
It was quite. We cut our teeth on that kind of hardcore shoot 'em up cases, and
Yes, indeed.
there's nothing more fun than that, even now.
Indeed, indeed. Uncle Buck, let's talk about some of the famous judges we knew in Prince George's County, Maryland, and working in Prince George's. How has that been?
We've had the delight of working with and for, and besides some of the best jurists you can imagine. You mentioned, of course, the Honorable Judge Houghton, Justice Michelle Houghton, who, we knew her when she was Michelle, and she again served as a mentor. We both worked directly for her, and she informed us as lawyers, and of course we've had the pleasure of appearing before her in every capacity, frankly, both on the circuit court when she was here,
I remember district court.
yeah, that's right.
I was before the
And of
district
course,
court.
when she's as an appellate lawyer, we appeared before her. So, she's an appellate judge. So, yep, we know Judge Cotton. We've had the pleasure of working with Judge Nichols, who's still with us, still practicing.
Still organizing Veterans Day, Appreciation Day.
Judge Chasnow was one of the esteemed judges who we cut our teeth in front of.
Judge Jared Devlin.
Jerry Devlin, God bless him, who now just celebrated, I believe, his 94th birthday. He's still with us. He's still
Amazing.
Yep. And it just goes on and on. Mike
Remember
Whalen,
Judge Richard Southern?
Judge Southern, who was fantastic. As I mentioned, Mike Whalen, Judge Whalen, who is still practicing, still on the bench, was really mentored every lawyer who appeared before him with his elegance and his erudition and his just kind nature,
his grace,
and his firmness. Just a magnificent judge. Nick Rattel's still with us, still a great judge. Vince Famia and
Rocky Docket.
Yes, Judge Famia and Judge Lombardi, Jim Lombardi, both were wonderful.
Good people. I remember coming to the Judge Famia's courtroom on the eve of Christmas Eve, and he says, "Here comes Gabe Christian, the best lawyer for no price, the pro bono king." And then, he dispatched my matter, and he says, "Gabe, do you want to come up here for a cookie?" It is the Christmas season. There's a Christmas season. And so, he offered me a cookie after my matter was done with. But the courthouse was much more intimate than, a lot of the judges now we don't know as well, but a lot of the other judges. Judge William Missouri.
Oh, Judge Missouri, God bless him. Yes. Yeah, we have been blessed to have known some wonderful people. And you mentioned practicing in this bar. And as you know, Gabe, we never told them. And I spent a lot of time in D.C. I spent a lot of time in big firm life. So, I've had and tried cases all over the country. But I've also had the rare privilege of being able to both have that kind of a practice and also have a home court, as it were. Have this, I'll always come back here to Prince George's County, and to have now at the capstone of my legal career, have this be where I finally hang my hat. And it's, this, as I say, it has been coming home, and truly is a home. And it really is a jurisdiction, a bar that is a delight to be part of, both for its collegiality, for its challenges. We for better or worse, practice in a very, very, very busy jurisdiction. But by the same token, we have really a lack of sharp elbows, to be very candid about it. In some jurisdictions, the prosecutors and defense counsel are at odds and are at each other's throats and are very, very acerbic to each other. I mean, here we all do respect and frankly like each other. And it's, you and I both have the pleasure of when we, go into that courthouse, walking down the halls, and really just greeting and being greeted by people. It is
Yeah.
almost like as they say about the bar and Cheers, where everybody knows your name.
Okay.
It's a real pleasure to be able to live your professional life in that kind of a setting, and to practice law at a high level at the same time. It's it's been a blessing.
Okay. Okay. Look, I mean, I always think that, we have to, uh, as practitioners, do what we do with grace, degree of gravitas, obviously, but being respectful of our opponents, because, we're not uh, plumbers. I mean, no disrespect to plumbers, but
Mhm.
we're not trying to get involved in a demolition derby. We're trying to use law and understanding the importance of rule of law to craft a civilization where we can adjudicate matters peacefully, respecting the process and respecting each other in the process. And that kind of personal enmity and that kind of crassness and kind of rude and uncouth behavior, I think demeans the practice of law and diminishes the respect that people have in the community for lawyers, where we fall into that sort of subpar, antagonistic sort of interaction with each other. And so I've always known you to be someone of superior intelligence, kindness, and grace. Same thing that Judge Horton imparted to us, Judge Missouri, Judge Devlin, and that school. Um, Today we have sometimes some judges not holding up their end to spotlight the judiciary in the best way, and you have some lawyers, I dare say, in the way they conduct themselves, in the set of enmity and necessary couth behavior, rude behavior, really making it very difficult to uphold the highest standards of the bar. So I just want to thank you for being
Yeah.
not only being someone who appreciates that, but being an advocate, an apostle in the best way of those who have burnished the image of our profession. I mean, we don't want to give credence to Shakespeare's well-known statement: "Let's first kill all the lawyers."
Yeah.
We think the
Let's hope,
lawyers are cloudy.
let's hope not. No, I mean, one of the things we have at this point in our careers, and you have it in your office, the young lawyers, and I've got the privilege where I am with the young prosecutors of mentoring them and really trying to leave an influence on the next generation of lawyers to hopefully form them in the same way as Tom and others formed us. And to have that as be our legacy is to just hopefully they are as fine a lawyers as you have been through the course of your career. And that's, that is the essence of professional life and being a professional is to bring along others behind us in our, um, who can pick up where we leave off.
Okay. I just want to, as we sort of at this point in this juncture in our lives, you're now a state's attorney. What has that been like compared to your days of private practice?
Oh, it's great. I mean, I enjoy very much being a state's attorney. I enjoyed being in private practice. Here, one of the nice things that we do have is that the unique role that a prosecutor has in our system is really even more than the judge is we do have the capacity to see that justice is done. We people sometimes accuse us as prosecutors of, oh, you're acting like a defense lawyer. And actually we are. That's sort of the job is we are supposed to be watching out as much for the rights um, and safety of defendants as their own lawyers are. I mean, that's an unappreciated role that prosecutors have in that courtroom as to making sure, everything we do is slated to make sure that justice is upheld. I mean, as distinct from sort of a perception of being a cutthroat and getting a conviction at any price, I think really we are, if we are doing our job correctly, looking for justice at any price. But that may not be a conviction. There are many other outcomes to a case, but we do have to be assured that everyone gets the most fair shake we can provide to them, not only the defendant, but also the victims. It's a very important role. And to a great extent, we get to pick and choose the cases we bring. I mean, at least the level that I'm at as a special prosecutions. We don't bring every case that comes across our desks. But when we do bring a case, it's usually because there are some special considerations at play, and we're attempting to right a very bad wrong or to send a message to the community. That is also part of a prosecutor's role, is to those not only to inflict punishment, but also to provide for deterrence to the community, but also to ensure or to try to put in place rehabilitation and to make people better who've come into the criminal justice system.
Indeed.
It is a role that I relished. I'm glad I'm getting to do this in the latter stages of my career. Not that I wouldn't have liked to do it earlier. I don't think young prosecutors are excellent, because they most certainly are. But it's nice to have the perspective that I do have of having done this work for over 30 years and having seen almost every possible thing it's possible to see as a lawyer, from a business perspective, from the kind of cases I've handled, and to bring that perspective to bear here as a prosecutor. I'm not sure if it brings wisdom, but it does help to have experience.
Indeed. Mark, we're in a very interesting stage in the history of the nation. As practitioners, we operate off a system of rule of law. We've got a constitution on a national level. We have a constitution on a state level. We believe in due process. We believe that certain rights are denied certain persons when they have been convicted of felonies, because it means that they have forfeited certain rights to have, for instance, weapons. They've forfeited rights to be members of the armed forces. They've forfeited rights to serve as jurors, and other things. What does it say about our country, where we may be in a time when our constitution, both from the state and federal level, may not always be respected, and when judges take decisions at variance with political directorate, there are calls for them to be removed, and there are comments made that, well, the people elected me to do what I'm doing, and so no judge should stand my way. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, of course, that sentiment really is not reflective of any of our system of government, our tradition, our history, or anything, frankly, remotely resembling what it means to be an American, much less to be an American in government. That's just, at the end of the day, frankly, it provides a challenge to we as lawyers. At the very least, there's a saying that somebody, I guess, who described themselves as being a conservative, in a true sense, is, well, you stand astride history and say stop. Well, as lawyers, I mean, our job is to stand astride and to say stop this, and stand up for the rule of law, regardless of one's political affiliations or one's sentiments. At the end of the day, we all raised our hand, took that oath to uphold and defend the Constitution and all that stands for. And this may be a time in history where it is, where lawyers are the bulwark, and you can't be a lawyer upholding your oath if you don't stand firm as to the rule of law, whether you like the outcome or not. No one voted for anybody under the aegis of we're going to turn all of our history, our tradition, our system, our rights, our shared liberty on their head. No one voted for that. And if they had, then that would have been a vote for anarchy. No, no one has the right to say, well, you voted for this. No, no one did vote for that, because that would not have been a legitimate outcome under any circumstance. It would have been
What?
been
Yeah.
a,
What do you say? What do you say? Absolutely, I agree with you. What would you say on Miss Leyden, where law firms, for instance, were barred from federal facilities, including courthouses, just because they represented certain clients?
it's akin to a bill of attainder on its face, beyond the First Amendment, beyond the policy, beyond every oops, Gabriel's still there, yeah. Beyond all of the other legal factors there, it's an abomination, and frankly, we're seeing it now. The Wall Street Journal and other outlets are reporting that those law firms who chose not to stand on their rights are facing some very substantial backlash from their clients, and not just clients who have sympathies for or against the current administration, but hard-nosed commercial clients, some of whom have traditionally been supportive of this administration and its policies, but take the position, well, you're a lawyer. If you can't stand up and fight for your own rights, how can we expect you to fight for my rights?
Amazing,
What
but
are
true.
you here for? Frankly, we mentioned Tom earlier. I can just imagine what Tom would say about a law firm that sullied its honor by surrendering meekly to those kinds of pressures, and not taking the walk over to the U.S. District Court, filing and saying, "Bring it on."
In conclusion, it's been 34, going on 35 years. Any word of advice to young lawyers as they approach a career of law, in the way in which they should behave towards their colleagues, and in the way in which they should seek to burnish the profession?
Absolutely. One, this is people talk about how many lawyers there are, and there are a lot. That's true. But the reality of it is, this is a very small bar. No matter whether you're talking about Prince George's County, whether you're talking about the state of Maryland, or whether you're talking about the American Bar Association, the national bar, of which I was privileged to serve as an officer for many, many years. This is a small group. And the reality of it is, no matter who you know, they know somebody else that you know. Everybody knows everybody else. Your reputation for professionalism, for having civility, and being a person of integrity really is very easy to lose and very easy to build if you do this right. So never think that anything you do will not flow forward and have consequences. Two, remember that this is a unique gift you have to be able to practice law. Never sully it by being tempted to cut corners, either before a judge, because your reputation, you blow it once, you lie to a judge once, and a judge catches you. Trust me, that becomes that is remembered not only by that judge, but by every other judge who you come before. Always maintain your integrity. No client is ever worth lying about or lying for. Three, that also applies integrity to your work product. Don't fall prey to the temptations of relying on artificial intelligence or other means of cutting corners in your work product. Yes, use the tools available. Westlaw, Gabriel, when we were starting out, Westlaw was sort of this exotic thing that wow, we don't have to look in those books and the Westlaw reporters and the other things or the West.
I was talking to an associate the other day about pocket parts. What was a
Yes,
pocket part?
what are those things and the different digests that we'd have to go
The
through
Senior Digest, Corpus
yes,
Juris Secundum.
and then to figure out, you just use a keyword search and to come up with the same things. It was just miraculous. Well, artificial intelligence is great to, I guess, get a first cut on a motion or a brief and that sort of thing. But remember, people read them.
Yes.
Don't make the mistake that far too many, it seems, um, very experienced lawyers who want to know better have made and submit these things without review, and put in there these hallucinogenic
Cases
sites, the
that do not
cases that
exist.
don't exist. I mean, my God, your reputation is far, far too valuable to
Yes.
really sully it very, very badly. So don't fall for that temptation. Yes, use all the tools available to you, but remember, at the end of the day, that's the signature at the bottom of the page is yours, and that's who gets judged on this. And furthermore, they call it practicing law for a reason, because it is iteration. It is doing this time and time again. As you learn this, you become, as you and I both know, Gabe, we're far better writers now than we were then, and we're far better writers now than we were even 10 years ago, because of we've been at this, we practice at it.
Yes.
You'll never get that way if you think that just putting a couple of keywords into Chat GPT or some other generative and artificial intelligence engine is a substitute for this practice. It's not, and just don't fall prey to that temptation. And to thine own self be true.
Indeed. Uncle Mark, we to be continued. There's so much here we've not covered, but I thought it was important to at least get something down from you, because you've been someone who's added much to the intellectual circumference of my existence. You added to that maturation. We've had a lot of discussions on various subjects of science, military history, politics, civilization, evolution, religion. It's really been a fine relationship. And from the Christian law firm, of which is your law firm, Gabe Christian at Leyden, and from the Christian family, I just want to thank you for your service. Thank you for the brotherhood we share, the love we share. And we ask God to bless you every day as you keep on serving our great county and our great state. And of course, Pennsylvania is, and Philadelphia in particular, one of our favorite places to visit.
All right, yeah. It's been an honor and privilege knowing you. You're a dear friend, a dear colleague, and your family is my family, and we love them dearly. So,
Love you too.
all right, Gabriel.
Thank you.
Bye bye.